friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Pre-Ride Show presented by Envy. We're right here smack dab in the middle of Lake Hodges, BWR just a couple of days away, and I'm so excited to join you because I get a co-host this time for this section of shows as we cover the Belgian Waffle right here in San Diego. My good friend Joy McCulloch. Joy, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Jim. And yeah, this is the Jim and Joy show now, at least for this segment. But I'm really excited to help shed some light on the women's field and have the chance to interview many of the ladies that are making the trip here to do this event.
Well, and you can speak from a great level of experience because you've raced with them, you coach them, you're deeply embedded in the sport. As we come into this, what's your overall sense of how racing is starting to build back up here in America, primarily in this world of gravel? Yeah,
it's a good question. In looking at racing is going full gas right now. If you're looking at mountain bike, gravel, road, the calendar is packed. We could pick 3 events to go to this weekend. And I think we're seeing a lot of the women and the men are, of course, out there racing. And so we've been able to now looking at the start list, which is kind of ever changing here as we approach to the event. People are wanting to come. People are asking, like, is it sold out? Can I come to the event? Now we're able to kind of look back and foreshadow maybe a little bit more accurately what's going to happen in this race. Because the women have been racing. We have the current U.S. Pro National Champion coming. We've got the winner of Unbound coming. And so the top echelon is going to be very powerful.
Let's look at that top group. If we could throw a blanket over the top 5 or 6 women before we get to your personal favorites, like who would that be and why?
Oh, it's so hard. So we're looking.
It's hard, right? Leaving somebody out, right? Because the field is just so stacked.
Right, and you have Lauren Steffens just won U.S. Pro. She won
in dramatic fashion.
In a dramatic fashion, yes. It's a solo breakaway. She won the Unbound 100-mile event. And so I think maybe before I look at the women, look at what would suit them. I always like, with my coaching business, I own a company called Big Wheel Coaching. We work with athletes of all calibers in cycling. We always want to look at what is the demands of your competition. Okay, when I toe the line today at the BWR, it's going to be 133 miles, half road, half dirt. That's much different than 200 miles of Unbound. That's much different than maybe it was about 80 miles at US Pro in the humidity. So looking at all of those factors, it makes it a really fun game to look at what athlete has that road engine, that depth, the savvy to be able to take those kind of skinny tires, now segue that onto single track. It makes it a much different game. Like right now we have the U.S. National Championships for mountain biker happening. So you have Rose Grant, who won Cedar City. Yep. She's a professional mountain biker. I've never seen her in a road setting. Like she might be a category 4 on the road, but she's a top caliber mountain bike on the national level. How is that going to translate into this pack of women, descending down at breakneck speeds on asphalt, heading into single track? And also she's joined with Hannah Ray Finchamp is at the mountain bike national championships right now. So those are some athletes, you can never discount them. One I really was excited to see on the list is Katarina Nash. Yeah. She is. I
think she can handle a bike pretty good on the dirt.
She can handle a bike. Yeah. Legit Olympian. You have a phenomenal mountain bike racer, but also the cyclocross. Yeah. So let's look at the list and see who's a cyclocross capacity or what their capabilities are in that more technical dirt with the skinny tires and the drop bars. We have obviously the winner of Unbound, Lauren De Crescenzo is coming, and then like I said, Lauren Steffens, U.S. Pro champ, but she's also at the Giro Dawn right now in Italy. Yep. So she's had a very packed schedule. She's on day 6, so they're going to have to be traveling back.
Race day legs are important, right?
Yes.
We can't account for the weather. We can't change the certain elements of the course, but just having a bunch of race hours, race days in your legs is really important here, right? Because that gives you the base fitness that you can handle to handle the day. Then you got to factor in all the other things, the heat, the technical ability of your equipment and the course itself.
Right, and if you look at a rider such as Lauren Steffens, she's racing at the World Tour. It's much different than if I've had 15 race starts at the local criteriums. Race day is not equal to a race day, if that makes sense. So we have several women like Lindsay Goldman, who's very fit, doing big group rides, who's coming here for her first race maybe since 2019. And I know that this is an event, but it's a race.
Very much.
We're racing here for glory. So we're looking at those race days, race starts. And the other thing I like about race starts is nerves. Right? So if I've been out of competition, I have a son, so I was out of competition for at least 9 months, right before and after. And so I wasn't towing the line. It was that first race back where many of these women, if they haven't raced since 2018, 2019, there's a lot of, race food, race bags, getting those jitters out and like, holy cow, we're railing down this road together in a pack of cyclists.
Those pack nerves together, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot to kind of take into consideration.
Does the course itself favor any one type of rider? Is it a climber course? Is it do you see it as a more roady specific sort of course, even with all the dirt?
I think it's more roadie-centric or pack capacity capabilities.
Your ability to handle and be comfortable in a pack.
The women are starting this year. It's very exciting. They're starting in their own pod, right? So they have their own start time. It's all they're going to be like shoulder to shoulder with their competitors. Whereas in the past they're in the mix. Okay, so this year you're going to know who's got your six the whole time, which is great, right? So, but where that puts them is behind a very, very, very large group of male starters. So the women are going to have to be very savvy and aggressive, passing pods of men that they're catching that are slow, right? And I mean that with all respect, but it's going to happen. There's going to be the 10-hour guys that these women are going to rail past. So a racer that is more savvy technically, aggressive might not be the best word, but assertive. Okay, if I see the gap, I'm going to take it, and I've learned that on the road. As a road cyclist, especially those, again, Lauren Steffens, if she's racing in the European peloton, she's going to have to make those decisions and get into a gap and, get ahead of a pod of race riders before you get into the single track. And I wrote about this actually after Cedar City, that the women, we had world champions, Kathy Pruitt was stuck on a climb with a Cat 3 20-year-old male. No offense to him again, but that is a disparity of skill level.
Sure.
Big. And so the women are going to come across that. So if they're assertive, if they are capable with their handling, that confidence, there's going to be big gaps there that maybe if we just looked at their power data, we wouldn't put them in that top group.
It's going to be a heck of a race, no matter how you slice it. The race organizers, I think, did a good move by starting the women all in their own pod like that. Let it sort itself out just with their own competitors. I think that's a really savvy move. So we're expecting some great things out of that women's field, and can't wait to see who makes the podium. Yeah.
I think the riders to watch specifically. I think big target on her back is Lauren De Crescenzo who won Unbound.
Such a great story too. It's a fantastic backstory, which I know you'll get into her with the interview that we're going to do with her.
The interview is going to be pretty epic, and they're, she's going to definitely have a target on her back, right? But she's one of those riders that she'll be like, oh cool, there's a target on my back. Like, won't change her game plan at all. Right. The other one with a very large target will be Lauren Steffens. Okay, with just winning U.S. Pro.
Red, white, and blue jersey.
Yeah, you got that stars and stripes, right? And so. And I think my dark horse would be a rider by the name of Jennifer Wheeler from the Seattle area. She's with Fount Cycling, has a deep history in track and raced for Tibco, years ago. Very strong, and her depth is never one to be underestimated. And she's very savvy. So I would put her as a dark horse, but you'd also have, Whitney Allison, who's been training extensively for this, or Jess Sarah, who's very good on the technical, on the single track segments. And then two more would be Mariah Wilson and Maud Farrell. They've had great early season showings up in Shasta and at the Rock Cobbler, and I think they're definitely going to be contenders.
Okay. Should we break down the men a little bit? Or?
Yeah, what are these guys up to?
Well, I don't have the depth of information and knowledge that you do because of how closely you follow it. And I don't mean to go all just favorites, but man, we are so loaded with some of the best riders in the country, in the world.
Right.
Look no further than Lawrence Tendams, who's come over and not finished anything less than second in any race he's entered so far. Ted King, who just 5 weeks off of a collarbone, was third or fourth at Unbound. We got Ian Boswell joining us. He won Unbound and then was down in Kenya for the Great Migration Race and did fantastic down there. Colin Strickland, you can't overlook him. And of course, Peter Stetna, who I think has something to come back and really vie for to try and double up on his win there. I really like Eddie Anderson. He came so close last time, and I think his experience at Unbound kind of sharpened his sword a little bit for dealing with the different the terrain and the bike handling and everything like that.
And Eddie beat Peter at a stage of the Oregon Trail Race.
Right.
He got him. He's the only guy to get him at one of those stages. So I think Eddie's a good pick too.
Yeah. For me, this race has always come down to the fact that it's not so much I can get dropped and get back in. It's more a battle of attrition. And it's just watching that group play itself out until it whittles down into whatever select group that is for whatever last chunk of miles. We watched that play out really well in Cedar City. It was a group of 30 that just slowly whittled its way down over time over the course of the day. And I think that's going to be how it happens here in San Diego. If not only because of the heat. I think the heat is the biggest factor that's going to impact these really talented men and women who are racing, because in the eastern parts of the course out in Black Canyon, it's going to be up in probably in the mid-90s for most of the day out there.
And that's mid-90s doesn't sound bad.
No.
But mid-90s when you're 5 hours into an event, when you're so depleted.
And you're on an 11-mile climb.
Right.
You know?
and you're just going and going. And I think, isn't Keegan Swenson is coming as well?
Keegan will be there. Alexi Vermeulen will be with us again too. And there's a host of others that Dylan Johnson is going to be racing with us. And Dylan's always a contender in any race he lines up for. It's such a stacked field. It's almost, if we did call-ups, we'd be doing call-ups for 45 minutes. That's why we're just going to just shout out a few of the big names here, just because it's so impressive, the caliber of riders that this race has attracted.
Well, I think it's an exciting thing, especially for those that are like the placing 100 to 4,000. For the
bucket list.
The people that, for them, this is their Tour de France, right? Or this is their Super Bowl. You know, my husband and I come from the Redlands area, and we always, have the Redlands Bicycle Classic. And out of towners would come and they're like, these people treat this race like it's the Super Bowl. We're like, because it is. And that's what BWR is here in San Diego. It's something that we've really embraced since it began, and it's become something that people of all abilities can train for and can come and do. There's the Wafer this year, there's the WANA, which is 36 miles, and it's going to allow this broad depth of athlete, of contenders, of competitors, that for them, even doing it in 10 hours, and I'm just like, imagine the leaders are going to do it in 6:30 or less. Right, but there's going to be people out there that are 10 hours or 11 hours, and looking at the fueling and the hydration for that exposure time when you're talking 90 degrees with stale wind. It sounds awful.
And we'll honor them as we do the finishers that come in the top places, because it is such an achievement for the overwhelming majority of the racers that come and join us. They are here to finish and know that they're not really contending for the win. But the beauty of it is they can line right up next to Peter Stetina, Ted King, Colin Strickland on that line and tackle this great challenge that's been built here in San Diego.
And it's gonna be fun at the finish to be able to interact with their their cycling heroes. To be able to see them at the finish line, to be able to see I'm keep thinking of there's more Olympians in the women's field, like Olivia Dillon. She's an Irish national champion. She's gone to the Olympics, and there's just such a depth of experience that is literally, I could go and get my burger. Well, we probably don't have burgers. We have waffles.
Waffles.
We have waffles. I'll go get a waffle and a beer, and I can sit down and talk to an Olympian. Right, and that's such a beautiful thing.
That's our community. It's expanding, it's growing. We're back in action. We're at events. We got all the top brands here in the industry, and we cannot wait to get it going here in just a couple of days. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing the stage here with you. We're on a temporary stage here today, but we'll be on site at North City for the bulk of our interviews. Joy, I look forward to working with you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Pre-Ride. Presented by Envy. If you're on our YouTube channel, please subscribe and click the little bell next to it so you get notifications of all the future episodes that we drop. Thanks for tuning in.